So that's the column here. That's the worst column down low that we found. And you got several of these cross members that are riveted, and those ones are pretty corroded. You know, we got, you can see a hole there. Then there's also a couple of them that look to be replaced. So they seem to be in pretty good shape. They got welded, so it's pretty easy to tell them apart. It's pretty heavy corrosion. You can see dimples and stuff in all the columns, even the ones without holes. One column section over here appears to have the bottom section cut out and replaced. You can see the weld there. So below there's not as much corrosion, but then up. So it seems to be pretty steady corrosion. Most of the columns are bent one way or the other. Most of them bend left. So they're not exactly straight up and down. You can see the bend there as it goes up. I'll look at a couple more. So that one's a little more obvious. You can see how it's bent at the top. So these are just two C-channels riveted together all the way up. Most of the columns seem to bend left, but there's a few, they don't all bend that way. This one actually kind of kinks to the right. You can see the kinks. It actually goes to the right a little bit, so it's not 100% uniform, it's rotating one way. And so these are the outer columns we're looking at now. So here, this one's got a lesser bend, a little bit to the left, not as bad. And so here's again a look at the new cross beams, and then you can see the corrosion on the, pretty pitted on the old ones. So here's the next column. And there's the kind of the kink there, so it kind of kinks over in the straight besides the little bend there. And here's another one with a fairly serious bend at the top. Here we go. Another one, similar bend. Like I said, most of them bend to the left. And this is the last outer column, and then there's 4 inner columns. Here, this one's kind of wavy, but you know, it's pretty straight as far as where it hits the roof to the floor. So here's the 4 center columns. It kind of bumps up. They tried to get a higher center. It's not, kind of bulges. So here's the verticality on the 4 center ones. There's one. And you can see this one's probably the worst of the 4 center ones. Swerves pretty good. It's the 3rd one. Here we go, here's the 4th one, which doesn't have too bad. Alright, then we got you can see the rafters, they don't come all the way to the center, and there's the center vent slightly off center. And then you have a few ones that are a little bit curved and bent, like this one here, going around. Most of them aren't too bad as far as being straight. So here we're going to do it again with night shot, do a little bit quicker review. So there's a look at the rafters. Not going to the center. Got a slightly bent one here for the most part. Pretty good. Look at the gauge pole connection. So here's a look at the one down low that's got holes. Obviously it's kind of hard to tell up the columns all the way where if there's any holes farther up the columns. I'm guessing that there's a few. You can see a couple here when I'm looking. And then again, here's a look at some of the columns not being straight. Pick out a couple of the worst ones. So here's a quick look around. You got the outer column row, and then they got cross members in between. Some of them are new, been replaced relatively recently, such as this one. And this one over here, you got the older ones that still got the rivets. And on the older ones, there's pretty heavy corrosion and dimpling in them that you can see. And then most of the columns have pretty heavy corrosion and dimpling. The inner columns seem to be in better condition as far as corrosion on the columns than the outer columns. But here's a look at the worst bent of the inner columns. And here's a couple examples of going back to the outer columns. You've got pretty good heavy dimpling and corrosion on the columns. And the bolts and stuff are rusted out pretty good. A few missing, but these have been welded up on, on this side when they replaced the section here. So they, got welds here and stuff holding it together now. And here's another look at the slight kink in this one to the right. But most of them have either a wave back and forth to them or a definite bend at the top on pretty much every single column. Here's a look at another one of the outer columns. So that's kind of, the floor, Bob said, had no problems. The big problem is just the, corrosion. You got spot holes here and there that you can see right there pretty consistently. You can almost, it's another hole over here. Can't see them all on the camera, but they're pretty consistently very heavy corrosion on these columns. So here's one more look at the verticality of this next column. So see a lot of them either swerve at the top or have a kink kind of in this mid area. And so both the columns are two C-channels held together with braces that are riveted all the way up.